I hope everyone can see my screen. I'm going to talk about how DAI, the stablecoin that was created and managed by MakerDAO, works. I'll be quite simplistic in a lot of things, but we'll love to get any questions about this afterwards. A small thing about me. So I'm the facilitator and product manager for the Data Insights core unit. When I say a core unit, is essentially a team within the organization. Um, our main mission is to make data as available as possible to as many people as possible within MakerDAO and the extended community. My background is in management consulting and fintech. I started as a community member at MakerDAO at the end of 2020, and then transitioned to be a full-time contributor by 2021. And as of late, I am leading the data insights team. And a big disclaimer, because of how a decentralized autonomous organization works, these are very much my own views. They don't represent the views of the organization themselves. Just as a like high-level positioning, as Gabriele was mentioning, there's a lot of different stable coins, different flavors, combinations of design patterns. The main ones being the fiat-backed, which in this case would be USDC, created by Circle, crypto-back, that will be the one that we'll be talking about today, DAI. And then we have algorithmic, and in my case, I will consider USD to be an unbacked currency, but this is also there's a lot of space to have a discussion about this. Another point I want to mention is that I'll be only talking about the one side of DAI, which is the supply of it, or how we create DAI, and the multiple ways we manage that. While there's a massive amount of information that we can be talking about on the demand side of how users make use of stable coins in a variety of different situations. The very important thing about DAI, or the ethos that we push in when building and managing this, is we're trying to achieve the most decentralized and censor stable coin out there. So in our case, that means that we ourselves cannot censor anyone from using DAI and interacting with it. Our governance or decision-making process is as decentralized as possible. And on the other side, it is as permissionless as possible. Like anyone can come in and make use of it without us being the gatekeepers. This is a beautiful image. This is a diagram of the multiple collateral DAI system, essentially how everything operates inside. I'll be brushing around this, but this is pretty much our North Star. And I encourage everyone to go to the documentation and understand how all these elements interact with each other. But now I'll go a bit more high level and explain to you how DAI is essentially created. So the main way that this happens is what we call the vault system. This is over collateralized vaults or loans that we give to users. Users are able to look up their collateral. In this case, it could be ETH. And then they're able to generate DAI based off that collateral. We operate on an over collateralized design, which means that you're looking up more collateral than what you're able to extract as a loan. This allows for a automated risk management system that ensures that every single DAI out in existence is always backed one-to-one by crypto collateral, meaning that we have an extra amount of trust that every DAI is equal to $1 or even more. For this system to work, a very important element in our system is what we call liquidations. Essentially, whenever a position, let's say it's ETH has gone down in value, and you've extracted a loan from it, if that value of the collateral is lower than the debt outstanding or close to it, we issue liquidation, meaning that we go into the market and we sell off that collateral in return for DAI. Essentially, rather than getting the debt returned by the user, we get it returned by what we call a keeper, or essentially is an arbitrageur that ensures that the DAI is always backed. That is the main design pattern. Now we have other ways that we are expanding our ways of introducing liquidity into the market. So two big points here is one is the real assets. So this is us making loans to traditional financial institutions This could be anywhere from real estate to development of sustainable projects, as well as engaging with mortgages, for example. In this case, we, rather than having a collateral ourselves, we are basically having a contract with the financial institution that we give this loan to. Also, we have what we call the D3M, which is essentially, you can think of it as a credit line to another protocol. So a good example of this is Aave. So Aave is a borrowing and lending protocol. In order to supply DAI to Aave, you would initially first have to build a vault to yourself and then move that DAI into Aave. What we're able to achieve with the D3M is Maker itself mints DAI and sends it directly into Aave, getting back as collateral the representation of that DAI inside the Aave system. We're able to basically cut the middleman and provide, while trusting another protocol, provide liquidity straight into the market. Big point with stablecoins is their liquidity, or really like the peg. One thing is for DAI to be worth around $1, and how precise that that peg is maintained. So in order to maintain a peg that is into the decimal places, meaning that very big transactions will still be equal in dollars or DAI, we're using two main mechanisms. One is the open market, which in this case is the decentralized exchanges such as Curve and Uniswap, where DAI there's a lot of DAI that is able to be traded against other stablecoins. And then the peg stability module. The PSM is essentially a system that we maintain, where we allow, regardless of the market situation, anyone to trade one DAI against one USDC or one USD Paxos or GUSD. That way, allowing people, agents in the market, to arbitrage away any differences that we might have on the DAI. So again, our goal is always maintain that peg to maintain that value to the community. Mechanisms that we have on top of this, we could call this like last resort mechanisms or fail safes. We essentially have our own governance token called MKR that mediates the value of DAI. So in this case, if we are having excessive profits, what we will do is we'll essentially burn Maker, basically allowing that for that pool to decrease in value while utilizing the extra profits that we have. And on the other side, if we ever find ourselves with like excessive losses that we cannot cover ourselves, then we will issue MKR and sell into the market in order to regain that DAI and becoming fully backed. Here, an important concept that I'm brushing over very simplistically is what we call the surplus buffer. So essentially, all the operations that we're doing in terms of interest rates that we earn and expenses that we have, are all coming from a single pool that we call the surplus buffer. The surplus buffer has been a great mechanism for us as a reserve to be able to hedge our risk. So essentially, whenever there's a loan that is unbacked, and for example, a liquidation fails, we're able to pay for ourselves through the surplus buffer to mitigate any issues that we might have on in the project. I'm being very overly simplistic, but I hope that gives you a nice overview of how one of the design patterns that we have around stablecoins. And encourage everyone to be involved. Here I leave the links for both our forum, discourse forum or Discord, as well as the documentation for MakerDAO, which is extremely interesting. And if anyone wants to reach out, please feel free. Now, Gabriele, I pass it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tadeo. Thanks a lot for your precious contribute. When evaluating a stablecoin, ensuring that the asset is properly collateralized is the first factor to maybe to consider. So it's very interesting to understand how DAI is one of the longer lasting stablecoin, I think, and that faced several stress tests in these market phases. So from a technological point of view, stablecoins find fertile ground in blockchains like Ethereum, for which maybe tools and technical skills are more easily found on the market. But however, the development of tradable assets on a native blockchain continues to make its way also on Bitcoin, which thanks to Lightning Network will be able to offer a similar experiences. So we will ask to Felice, a former member of Blockchain Edu and an expert of Lightning Network, to tell us about the world of tokens and those linked to the fiat coins that we will have in Bitcoin. So thanks, Felice.
Thank you too, Gabriele. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, so we are going to talk about synthetic fiat on Lightning. Okay, thank you. I'm going to talk about synthetic fiat on Lightning Network and what are the prospects for future Bitcoin banks. I'm Felice Rocchitelli, CEO of Oida Digital, and I've been working as a consultant in the crypto sphere since 2017. Without further ado, I'm gonna just give you a really fast overview of the Bitcoin Lightning Network. I'm sure that most of you already know what it is. Here there is the draft of the white paper proposed by Joseph Kuhn and Tadeo on January 2016. So in this draft, they actually described and proposed a protocol for enabling instant payment across a network of participants. This protocol makes use of Bitcoin blockchain transaction and use native smart contract script language to create a secure network of participants which are able to actually transact at high volume and high speed. And yeah, it's a network of bidirectional payment channel that are completely trustless in their nature because, again, the smart contract scripting language of the Bitcoin blockchain enable this bidirectional payment channel to be completely trustless. So the case for virtual payment and offset channels, the virtual payment channels is a concept that was first proposed by René Picard. That is Bitcoin. It's really let's say it's an activist, it's a data scientist, really active in the Bitcoin community. He first proposes the concept of the virtual payment channel in his blog post. And yeah, they are actually a way to improve and increase the scalability and reliability of large payment providers. Yeah, they might resemble in such way the fractional reserve banking system. Also, René Picard in his blog post highlight this characteristic. Anyway, there is some spaces to accept this kind of concept, even if they require some trust. Yeah, the interesting stuff is that they do not change the trustless nature of the Lightning Network. So we have, after René Picard's post, the Bitcoin Lightning wallet developer Anton Komagorski created and proposed the so-called hosted channels that are specific type of channel on the Lightning Network that enables some sort of credit system in which actually funds hosted in hosted channel actually are poor. I own you between the host and the client. Yeah, the main motivation for this is to simplify user experience and reduce to zero the on-chain footprint. Also increase the scalability, the world scalability of the system. You might know maybe Blue Wallet and L&D hub that is actually a service for operate hosted channels. So having said that, we have to define what is synthetic. In this, there is actually a definition of synthetic from Investopedia, which says that actually the term synthetic is given to financial instruments that are engineered to simulate other instruments. So we can say that it's actually terms used to replicate, financial instrument used to replicate other financial instrument while not having the same all the same characteristic of the this underlying instrument. So Bitcoin banks and synthetic fiat channels actually are a concept that fit very well together. And yeah, I'm not gonna argue too much. I'm not gonna give you too many arguments on why Bitcoin bank are good or are bad. I just wanted to point you to this post on the Bitcoin Talk forum made by Alfini, for who actually sustained that there are very good reasons for Bitcoin-based banks to exist. And yeah, we are going to see the main services that are needed to enable synthetic fiat on top of Lightning Network are actually hosted fiat channels, technology we discussed before. The dealer, who is a person or an institution who buy and sell security on their own account, as opposed to, for example, a broker that buys and owns security on on their customer account. This kind of system requires there is a derivative trading desk that actually supports Lightning Network deposit and withdrawal. And yeah, the specific type of contracts that actually simplify the experience for issuing synthetic fiat on top of Lightning requires also some sort of price service, because as you can see on the bottom right of this diagram, the trading desk actually have to provide the dealer with what are called specific contracts that are actually perpetual inverse futures, and perpetual futures require some sort of services for actually for recovering the price of the underlying asset, which is connected to the futures contract itself. So I'm sure that most of you already know what a future contract is. In this case, the inverse futures are actually futures in which the commodity and the settlement currencies are actually swapped. So in this case, the derivative trading desk should provide to the dealer the possibility to buy and sell inverse futures on Bitcoin and the US dollar, for example, if we want to talk about one kind of fiat currencies. And doing so, inverse futures allow the settlement to be denominated in the commodity unit of account, that in our case is Bitcoin. So it's again, this kind of perpetual inverse futures allow the dealer to actually provide to actually execute the hedging of the user position. So that's the process that actually enable the dealer to ensure the value of the Satoshi that users have in their wallet. So the dealer actually can do this by actually executing several hedging strategies. The most simple hedging strategy to guarantee a fixed value of Bitcoin in terms of US dollar in the futures is actually a hedging strategy again that makes use of perpetual inverse future contract Bitcoin for actually short selling Bitcoin for US dollar. And again, this kind of contract, the particularity of perpetual futures is that they do not expire as for futures. And as I said before, they make use of a price service to ensure, and to some kind of fee incentives that make sure that the price of the contract is aligned with the price of the underlying asset. So that in this way, again, the dealer can ensure and can, let's say, lock a value in the US dollar for the future for their user, and doing so, it can guarantee that a fixed a specific amount of Bitcoin will maintain a specific amount, will maintain a specific value in terms of US dollar. And as you can see, actually, the user wallet are actually just are Lightning wallet, so they can even communicate and send normal and standard Lightning transaction to other nodes. And there are several type of businesses that this kind of schema can enable for the Bitcoin banks, and there are several type of services that the provider, the dealer, or the host can provide to the end users. So yeah, that's very cool. But yeah, what about stablecoin? Why to introduce this other kind of other new technologies and not make use of stablecoin instead? So actually, there are several reasons, but I will just say that if you have Bitcoin and Lightning and you want to use, for example, Tether, that is one of the most famous stablecoin and the most capitalized one, you need to find the exchanges with the Lightning Network support and pay transaction fee on Lightning, exchange fee, transaction fee on the Tether settlement layer you choose. And another fact is that there is actually this settlement layer, for example, for Tether is issued on different networks or different settlement layer, but this settlement layer are kind of isolated. And so if you have USDT on liquid, you can seamlessly send it to your friends that actually has Ethereum wallet and want to receive Tether on top of the Ethereum. So the experience again is I mean, the user experience is not so seamless. Anyway, the transactional layer one will always be slower and more expensive, even though I know that there are several stablecoins that actually also DAI, for example, that actually works and are issued on layer 2, on top of layer 2 technologies. Yeah, and I know that you can think about the main risk of this kind of architecture, that is the counterparty risk, and why to reintroduce some sort of counterparty risk. And I will say that it's just inevitable. So any kind of economic activities might require some level of risk, and counterparty risk is out there, and you can just avoid it. And what's next? This kind of technology can be improved, and Bitcoin protocol and Lightning Network can have several can host several kind of different protocol architecture, enabling the functionality of synthetic fiat on top of again of the Bitcoin protocol. And there are several technologies that are being built there for also improving the Bitcoin protocol in this aspect. And some of them, I will point just some of them, like the discrete log contracts, the RGB protocol, or the Taro protocol. And yeah, that's all. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Felice, for your explanation. So Bitcoin is still considered by many to be unsuitable for the creation and exchange of other tokens, and perhaps maybe for this reason, a large part of developers overlook to other blockchains. But however, thanks to your explanation, we realize how the development of layer on top of Bitcoin is also continuing at full speed. So there are different technological standards to create a stable coin, which must be able to offer more and more security and transparency to win the war between the various stable coin and obtain the most of the market capitalization of this type of tokens. So together with Gianmarco of PwC, we will now navigate through the various standards used to implement fiat tokens, and which are the most used. So I give you the floor, Gianmarco. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gabriele. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, let me just share my screen. Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm Gianmarco. Present myself. I'm Gianmarco Guazzo. I work as an associate at PwC. I'm a business analyst and working in between the business and the tech side of my team. And today I want to talk about stablecoin, and specifically I would like to go deeper into how we can implement fiat-backed stablecoin, and talking specifically about USDC. So I guess, as everybody knows here, there are 4 types of stablecoin approach. The fiat collateralized approach that held fiat assets in their reserve. So we have like USDC and USDT. Then we have crypto-backed collateralized stablecoin like DAI and Tadeo was presenting before. And then we have algorithmic non-collateralized stablecoin that are basically software that create economic models that aim to provide price stability. But as we saw with UST, it's still an industry that needs to fix some of their models. So today I want to talk about USDC and how it is, which are the standard behind USDC and how the whole ecosystem of USDC it's been developed. So what there is behind USDC? Behind USDC, we have Center. Center is a member consortium, company founded by Coinbase and Circle in 2018. And their mission is to provide kind of a layer of governance and standard for the stablecoin ecosystem. So they basically provide a standard they develop, and it's the same standard that they're using for the new euro coin that has been deployed in mainnet around 1 month ago. And basically USDC, it's a network. So Center is not a financial institution and is not holding any of the reserve assets, but rather is creating a network of financial institution that became like a sort of a commercial issuer of the USDC. And so to enter into this network, you need to meet with 5 requirements that Center is requiring. So first of all, you need to hold all the applicable license in the operating jurisdiction. Then you have to be audited with the anti-money laundering and compliance program. And then you need to hold the reserve into a one-to-one basis with the issue token. And within the last requirements, you need to provide reporting and review requirements that basically every month USDC provide this kind of reports. And then lastly, you need to support the fungible exchange between the members of this network. So trying to jump into the technicalities behind USDC. So USDC is an ERC20 token, and I guess as everybody knows here, the ERC20 token is the standard for fungible tokens. So it has many different use cases. For example, it can be used for the governance layer. As a governance token, it could be used for utility, and it can be used also for ICO, IDOs, and all kind of offering of new tokens. And this type of standard has 6 different functions that has to comply with in order to be imported into many different applications like dApps or into DEX or into wallets of the user. So the first one is the total supply. So we need to know how many tokens have been minted. Then we need to have the balance of, so we can see if a specific address, how many tokens a specific address has. And then we have the approve function that basically is a function that gives the ability to another address to spend my token. And this is useful when we are interacting with for example, with a DEX, for example, Uniswap. And then there are the transfer from. So I can transfer. So transfer from is used by the address that has the allowance. The allowance is the amount of token that a specific address has the ability to move. And transfers from it, it's the function that could move those tokens from an external address that is not owning directly that tokens so they can move those tokens. And then transfer is the normal transfer when I can transfer my token from one wallet to another. So try to see how the Fiat Token Standard architecture works. So the Fiat Token architecture is composed by two main smart contract. That is, the first one is the master minter, and the second one is the Fiat Token Standard itself. So the first, the master minter has 2 basic functions. I'm trying to extract in the complexity because obviously it's not just 2, but the main 2, the function are set minters. So the master minter could add a new commercial issuer if they met all the requirements that we saw before, and also could set the allowance, and we will see later what it means. But basically, it's a kind of a security method that we have in order to not giving the possibility to a specific minter to mint way too much tokens. Then we could move to the Fiat Token Standard itself. The Fiat Token Standard used 3 different design patterns that it should be good to see in every smart contract that is deployed into an Ethereum token, but generally Ethereum smart contract. And so these 3 design patterns are, the first one is access control, and the access control give us sort of a role-based smart contract. So we have different roles with different capabilities and different possibility to do actions. Then we have the upgradability design pattern, where we can divide the logic of the smart contract and the implementation of the smart contract, where the logic held all the data and the information about the smart contracts. For example, how many token a specific address has, or all the list of holders of that specific token. And then we have the implementation, that is where we find the function of this token. And together with the possible design pattern, we can basically stop the smart contract and stop some of the function of the smart contract, in order to, for example, if we find a bug, we can stop the smart contract, upgrade the implementation. So without even touching the logic and the data of the smart contract, we can change the implementation, fix the bug, and then we can unpause the smart contract and going on with all the operation. So the Fiat Token Standard, as I said before, has this kind of access control pattern that and it defines six role and basically a 6 address that controls different functionality. So as I said before, we have the master minter, that is the one that can add and remove minters and increase their minting allowance. Then we have the minters itself that can create and destroy tokens. So basically, Center itself cannot create token and cannot destroy tokens. Then you have the pauser, as we said before, is the one that could pause the contract, which, for example, prevents all the transfer and minting and burning of the tokens. We have the blacklister, so it's a kind of way how to prevent all the transfer to or from a particular address. For example, if you found that an address has done a fraud, we can stop it and make it in a blacklist, so it's not able to move or withdraw their tokens. And then we have the owner, that could reassign any of the roles except for the admin. And then we have the admin that can upgrade the contract and reassign itself. So if there, as we said before, if there is any bug, any problem, we can use the pauser and the admin to change and to fix that particular bug. In this case, Center controls all the roles except for the minters, as I said before. So Center has not the ability to create new tokens or burn new tokens. And I would like to go deeper into how is working behind the scenes the minting process, because as I said before, we have plenty of minters. So we have a network of minters, and each minter has a minting allowance. So this minting allowance is set by Center, and periodically is checked to see if they met all the requirements and is fixed. So the minting allowance is basically is this functionality that gives the opportunity to the minter to mint that specific amount of token, and but they do not really give them the possibility to mint as many tokens as they want. So for example, if a specific minter is hacked and they lost their keys, and a hacker wants to print 2 trillion of USDC, they cannot, because they have a minting allowance that gives a fixed amount of token that they can mint. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that USDC has created this standard, but this standard is interoperable with plenty different standards out there. They basically the first deploy was made into the Ethereum network mainnet, and then it has been integrated in many different blockchains. For example, the Hedera, Solana, Polygon, Stellar, Algorand, and Flow, and each of them has the same standard using basically that 6 function that we see before. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope it's interesting, and try to give you an overview on how this what's behind the scenes of USDC.
Great, thanks Gianmarco for your precious explain. So we see how one of the most adopted stablecoin work, and I also see that Felice has answered to the question of one of our guests. So maybe Felice, would you like to summarize the answer, to leave your interpretation also to the one we'll follow this event later?
I just pointed out, you can find in the chat a link for, getting to see what are a list of possible, a list of exchange that are really implemented Lightning Network for deposit and withdraw. I was saying that for the derivative trading desk that was inserted in the presentation I showed you, it's the most important things is which kind of contract are available on the desk, on the platform, because as I said, there are some contracts that perfectly fit the use cases for and perfectly enable the dealer to hedge in a best way against the foreign exchange risk. So yeah, the most important things is for this desk is to have to provide this kind of perpetual inverse future contracts that as I said are able to guarantee a seamless flow and a more smooth flow. I hope it's clear. Anyway, you can. I mean, you can send me question in chat, or later I can leave you my contact.
Great. So thank you, Felice. If you want, you can give us your contact, maybe on Telegram. Or mail contact for those who have a question about. So we have a technologically world that runs really fast and that leaves behind dark areas regarding legislation, too slow to anticipate the technological innovation. So with regards to stablecoins, there are several potential systemic risks identified by the major central banks, which today find themselves having to compete with the private companies that raise capital and issue liquidity in the form of cryptographic assets. So these companies have often been criticized as they do not provide the right transparency regarding the asset held as collateral. So, however, some of these private companies have been able to sustain billions of dollars in withdrawals without being insolvent. So that is not possible in short term for many banks. There is therefore a lack of fungible definition and regulation at European, but also at the global level. So those regulations could protect companies and consumers who want to use these tools. But however, an European regulation is on the way and will bring clarity to the world of cryptocurrency and also stablecoins. So I give the floor to Niccolò Travia, who will provide us a perspective in the light of the upcoming European regulation. So thanks, Niccolò.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much to everyone who joined this interesting meetup. I am usually the most boring person in the room because when it comes to speak about legislation, so I try to keep it very fast and simple. I'll share my screen so I can give you some slides. Everything is okay? So
yeah.
Perfect. So the first thing, the recent news is that on the 30th of June, we have a provisional agreement between the Council and the European Parliament on the proposal of the Commission for regulation of crypto assets in general. And within this concept, this conceptual category, we have all the stable coins. In the MiCA perspective, the market in crypto assets regulation, stable coins are treated in two ways because they're considered both as asset reference tokens and as e-money tokens. We will see the differences later on. And the thing is that it's interesting to notice that also when following the Terra Luna collapse, both the UK legislator and the United States government announced that they are underway to promote legislative regulation about stablecoins in particular. I think one interesting thing to notice is that the first input on legislation at the European level on stablecoins and crypto assets in general was due to the fact that Facebook announced its project Libra, then called Diem, and then aborted eventually because of the legislation that was starting to be adopted in every state and world state to try and avoid this this type of product issued in the market without regulation. So what we can notice is that regulation follows often follows a systemic shock. So what was this is represented by the announcement of Libra, and now is represented by the collapse of Terra Luna. Obviously, the perspective from the European legislator is the risk-based approach. And so the most what we can notice in the regulation is that the focus is on consumer protection more than innovation enhancement. And this is a well-known type of attitude that the European institutions have always laid down in their regulation. So what what is contained in this announcement, the press release on the provisional agreement that up to date we don't have on its definitive version, but we only have a press release, is that MiCA will protect consumers. This is the main focus. The thing that is announced is very significant because the MiCA regulation will impose stablecoin issuers to have a sufficiently liquid reserve with a 1-to-1 ratio, and partly in the form of deposits. So there is an analogy between especially e-money tokens, the fiat-backed tokens, that an analogy between those and the e-money, electronic money, because we already have a regulation on electronic money. We all know that money has different forms. There are central bank money and local banks, national bank money that are very different among each other, but they all represent a credit towards an institution. Now, stablecoins actually don't. And so this is why the perspective of the European regulators is to try and bring this, attract the regulation of stablecoins in the well-known regulation of electronic money. So they will represent a credit in force of which the possessor of a stablecoin will be, it will be possible for the owners to always claim the equivalent in fiat or other forms. There will be the supervision on stablecoins by the European Banking Authority, and every member state will have to appoint a national authority that regulates specifically stablecoins. And the issuer of asset reference tokens will, and also e-money tokens, will have to have a registered office in the European Union to ensure the proper supervision and monitoring of offers. So the first category is the asset reference tokens, ART, that aim at maintaining a stable value by referring to any value or right or combination thereof, including one of or several official currencies. This definition, as I said, we don't have a definitive version, so this is, I will refer to the council proposal. Basically, asset reference tokens are a basket, refer to a basket of other assets, and this is specifically the situation of Libra that was proposed by Facebook with its Libra coin. What will they have to do? They will be subject to more stringent requirements with respect to, let's say, utility tokens. In the taxonomy of MiCA, we have an interesting shift in perspective, because while before the MiCA proposal, everyone always utilize the taxonomy that was proposed by FINMA, the Swiss authority, back in, I don't remember, 2018 maybe, when the ICO movement was very strong. And the taxonomy is, as we all know, utility token, security token, or payment tokens. Now the MiCA regulation adopts another perspective, and we have stablecoins in both the forms of ARTs or e-money tokens, and tokens that are not stablecoins. The security tokens are not considered in the scope of MiCA because for security tokens, the securities directives and regulation will apply. So basically the MiFID II and the other regulation that specifically apply to the financial instruments. So in the scope of MiCA, we only have stablecoins and tokens that are not stablecoins and are not financial instruments. They must be the issuers of, so we have some regulation about the utility tokens. Let's say that is the only type of token that can be fit in the MiCA proposal. And they have a certain type of regulation that we will not consider in this meetup. But the interesting thing is that the stablecoin issuers have a more stringent regulation. So they must be authorized by submitting an application to their relevant national authority. Whilst in the other case, this authorization is not needed. The other interesting thing is that they have to provide a legal opinion in which they state that their token cannot be cannot be considered as a financial instrument or electronic money or other types of products. There are some exemptions that usually are set up for let's say the relevance of the issuance. And so if the offering does not exceed 5 million, then the authorization will not be needed. And also if the let's say the offer is only made to qualified investors, then the authorization is not needed. However, the white paper is needed in any case. And this white paper has to be forwarded to the national authority. The RIT issuers must develop, this is interesting, and continuously maintain a plan which demonstrates the ability to carry out an orderly liquidation of their assets to protect the token holders. So they have to be, let's say, audited constantly, and in any time they have to demonstrate that they have the liquidity to repay their investors if there is a bank run, let's say. The other type of stablecoins that is considered in the MiCA proposal is the e-money tokens. These are have reference only to one official currency of a country. So this is basically USDT, USDC, or Euro, I don't know, EURT. And these are the issuers of these type of token have more stringent requisites because they basically have to comply to the requisites that are needed to issue an electronic money, nor ordinary electronic money, because these crypto assets are electronic surrogates for coins and banknotes and are used for making payments or as a source of value. So they have to be authorized and they have to comply with the relevant requirements applicable to electronic money institutions. So we have some type of organizational requirements and some type of governance and also capital requirements. What is also interesting is that we have here we have a type of the differences with e-money. This is also considered in the scope of MiCA. Is that while in the let's say in the forward of the proposition of the proposal, is that while the electronic money holders always have a contractual right to redeem their electronic money, some of the crypto assets, especially the e-money tokens, do not provide their holders with such a claim. So this is the reason why the authorities have set out this type of regulation, attracting the electronic money tokens to the electronic money discipline. And so they have to have liquidity, and we all said this is the perspective of the European Parliament in the let's say in the trilogue, in the dialogues that have been forwarded on the Commission proposal of MiCA, is that union legislation should not favor one particular technology based on the principle same business, same risks, same rules, and should follow a technologically neutral approach. This is very interesting because it actually basically provides for a type of regulation that will be in the end very similar to the one that we already have for intermediaries. Because if the same businesses, same risk, same rules, if we consider that stable coins are, let's say, on par with electronic money, then inevitably the regulation will be very similar. But in my opinion, this is not really the best case scenario, because it would probably stifle innovation inside the European Union and just make all the business go abroad. What the council mandate, I mean the council opinion proposal in this dialogue, is that specific requirements should be applicable to credit institutions. This, I think, is much more interesting as an approach. So we shouldn't have a level playing field between small fintech firms and major credit intermediaries, but only the latter should have a specific regulation when they deal with these type of let's say, new types of tokens. This is an interesting approach, and we will see what comes out from this provisional agreement if the Council prevailed or the European Parliament prevailed. And some less remarks very quickly is that to consider the background of the MiCA proposal. An interesting document is the Financial Stability Board document, Regulation, Supervision, and Oversight of Global Stablecoin Arrangements, that in October 2020 had some interesting remarks. And the FINMA stablecoin guidelines that are due, that were published on September 2019. So we can have a comparison, because as we all know, Switzerland will not be affected by the MiCA regulation. And the last consideration that I would like to make is that the approach that is set out by at the European level, at least, is very similar to the one that was made towards the phenomenon of the shadow banking. So basically, what the European Union is trying to do is regulate the cryptocurrencies and the crypto assets phenomenon in general in the same way that the shadow banking was treated. Obviously, shadow banking, there are very interesting reports, especially this one that is a study requested by the Econ Committee from the European Parliament that is called What Kind of Macroprudential Regulation Framework? And there is also a very interesting document that is called Money Creation in Decentralized Finance, a Dynamic Model of Stablecoin and Crypto Shadow Banking, that is published by CES-IFO, and it's a working paper. Basically, the approach is that shadow banking is huge. It's much larger than the whole crypto asset movement in general, with trillions of dollars. But basically, in the shadow banking, the approach of the European institutions towards shadow banking is an interested approach, because everyone, the institution, recognized that shadow banking, I mean, the phenomenon of banking activity outside the banking regulation and the banking circuit is very good for financial innovation. But notwithstanding, there's always a consumer protection issue. So I think that basically this is the type of approach that will be followed also for MiCA. So I thank you for your attention, and I am here for any